wish in the well. Don't ask me, I'll never tell. I looked to you as it fell, and now you're in my way. I trade my soul for a wish, pennies and dimes for a kiss. I wasn't looking for this, but now you're in my way.
Hi, I'm Elia Einhorn, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Music Podcast. The Talkhouse team set up camp at Pitchfork Music Festival in Chicago earlier this summer and recorded some fantastic artist-on-artist talks. In upcoming weeks, you'll hear conversations that took place there between Julia Holter and Broken Social Scene's Kevin Drew, Porch's Aaron Main and Shamir, BJ the Chicago Kid and Mick Jenkins, and Spencer Tweedy and the band Whitney. Today's episode is a Pitchfork Music Fest twofer. As the main event, you'll hear a hilarious and insightful conversation between Thundercat and Kamasi Washington, top-tier musicians who rose to prominence through their collaborations with huge artists such as Flying Lotus and Kendrick Lamar. But first, we've got a short for you, a one-question wonder, if you will. This very brief chat between Carly Rae Jepsen and Brian Wilson took place just before the latter took the stage to perform the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds in full at the festival. Wilson is famously a man of few words, but he agreed to answer a question from fellow singer-songwriter and fellow Pitchfork performer Jepsen. Yep, that's Carly Rae Jepsen of ubiquitous Call Me Maybe fame. Following the massive success of Call Me Maybe from her 2012 album Kiss, Jepsen released the critically acclaimed record Emotion last year. Brian Wilson, who really needs no introduction, was the leader and creative genius behind the legendary Beach Boys. He penned and produced hits like Good Vibrations, California Girls, and God Only Knows, amongst dozens of other all-time classics. Jepsen has spoken in interviews about how she considers herself a songwriter first and foremost. So it's no surprise that when I asked her if she had a question for Brian Wilson, she immediately decided to ask one about songwriting. Check it out.
Hi, this is Carly Rae Jepsen with the Talkhouse. I'm about to meet Brian Wilson, shaking my boots.
Here we go, let's do it.
One question, go.
Brian, this is Carly.
It's such an honor to meet you.
I was going to ask you the question.
Hi. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. So my question for you, obviously you're a songwriter of all songwriters. How did it start for you? What was the first time you realized that you had a gift of songwriting? And
when I was 19, I wrote Surfer Girl. That's when I first knew I had a gift.
Really?
Yeah.
On just acoustic guitar?
Yeah, no, on piano.
On piano?
Yeah.
Okay. What was it sparked from? Where did the inspiration come
Came from the Four Freshmen.
Okay, amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Short and sweet. Brian Wilson recently made a mix for a project I was working on with Pitchfork Radio, and he included this song by the just mentioned Four Freshmen as one of his absolute favorites. Take a listen.
There's a story told of a very gentle boy and the girl who wore his ring through the wintry snow. The world they knew was warm, for their hearts were full of spring.
Stephen Thundercat Bruner and Kamasi Washington grew up together in South Los Angeles. They both came from musical families, and at early ages, Thundercat took up the bass and Washington the tenor sax. The guys came up through the jazz world, mastering their instruments and forming deep musical ties and bonds of friendship with a coterie of musicians that they work with to this day. Thundercat has worked with artists as varied as Erykah Badu, Suicidal Tendencies, and rapper Vic Mensa, while Washington has performed with Lauryn Hill and Mos Def. And of course, they've both collaborated with fellow Angelinos Flying Lotus and Kendrick Lamar. Last year, Washington released his breakout album, The Epic, a 3-disc jazz fusion record featuring a full choir and orchestra. And Thundercat dropped the funky The Beyond, Where the Giants Roam LP, where he not only played bass, but took on lead vocal duties. This hilarious and touching talk takes in a lot of history. It's great hearing how the two went from being obscure session musicians, to first call hired guns, to celebrated solo artists in their own right. Their conversation also touches on Thundercat's larger-than-life brother, acclaimed drummer Ronald Bruner Jr., getting fired from gigs when they were unable to contain their musical mischief and desire to play expressively in their own voices, and how, eventually, that same individuality became their greatest asset and the key to their successes. It also covers Thundercat's last conversation with J Dilla, his songwriting input on Flylo's records, and how working with Kendrick Lamar on To Pimp a Butterfly was different from other collaborations because of the freedom they were given. Their backstage conversation begins with the guys talking about how they met. Check it out.
It's gonna get real abstract up in here in a minute.
They're gonna have to edit the conversation with specific words. And the first time I met him, where all these pieces coming from?
It was mostly profanity. It was about 70% profanity. At least 70%.
Oh shit, man!
He was a baby. We were babies.
Childhood suppressed memories and shit.
Yeah, so my third birthday, Ronald Bruner Sr. brought his 2 kids here, and they dominated us all.
Yeah, I grew up to look like a woman for a very extended period of my adolescence.
Yeah. Our parents played together, so it was kind of one of those things that was like, we'd meet up at the rehearsal, and
like, I don't know.
And we all get whoopings.
For one thing or another. It'd be,
caught me last week.
Like, you couldn't find me. I'd be hiding somewhere in the bass drum. Ronald be to mess somebody's whole entire shit up.
You could always depend on Ronald to do something worse than you did.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, your bad thing wouldn't be that bad.
Oh, yeah. Ronald was like the sitcom, the walking sitcom. We'd have moments where, like, we would, like non-music related, where we would just be hanging out. Like, it was always about music. But we'd try to do some shit like go to the movies. And I mean, I kid you not, everybody would be there for this moment. We were like, oh man, we're gonna go check out. I don't even know what movies was out at the time. Like, I can't even think of the movies I was at the time. But it'd be like, you call your mom when you go to the movies, let her know what you're doing. And so there was one specific night we went out, and it was like one of those things where it's gonna be a little bit later than you would normally come home. What time do you think you're gonna come home? Around 2:00. The movie we gonna movie around 12. So I called my mom first, and I asked I called my mom and I'm like, hey mom, we out here at the movies. She's like, okay, what time are you gonna be back? And I was like, I don't know, maybe 2, 3. She's like, okay, well don't make any noise when you walk in the house. And I hung up, and everybody lost it because it was like, it was so different from my brother when he would call home. So we sitting there, and then we did an experiment. He was like, okay, Ronald, now you call.
I remember this.
Ronald called. He couldn't even get a word in. Like, as soon as she
get home right now.
As soon as she answered the phone, it was like, hey, bring your butt home right now. It was no like, I'm with Steven. It was none of that. It was just like, it didn't matter. So it was like, you could always count on Ronald to just be way more you. Yeah, man, so there's, those moments growing up, history just riddled with moments like that, like playing gigs and stuff. And, we started playing, like, it was, for me, I wasn't personally in high school at the time we actually started playing either.
Yeah. Steven was younger than us. And it was
in middle school.
We would drag him around places.
Oh my gosh.
Like, late, because me and Ronald were like, we were crazy. We didn't we used to do things like, go sneak into a club 5 nights in a row. The same club.
At this point.
And not pay. Like 5 nights in a row. We just was here yesterday and didn't pay.
Try to come with a
and
mustache.
come right back.
With a trench coat.
Every day we would lie. Like today, oh yeah, we're on Chris Dave's list. We ain't never met Chris Dave in our life.
Oh my God.
Like, yeah, I'm on Nat Reeves' list.
Just go check with him real quick.
Like, man, because yesterday when you said he's on Chris's list, you wasn't on the list. I know that, but today it's... And we used to do it like those things on purpose. Like, we wait for them to be playing so that the dude couldn't really go ask.
And just get him every time, man.
Yeah. And one time we was... did you come with that time and Ronald lied to me? He called me up. He was like, hey, man, I'm going to go see Dennis Chambers. I was like, man, Ronald, I'm on E and I ain't got no money. He's like, oh, I got gas money. I think you work with us. You were with us.
I would always probably be quiet. I was kind of like...
I know. Like, Steven probably knew he didn't have no money. So they get in the car and we get to driving.
Oh, my God.
We get about halfway there. I'm like, hey, man, maybe we should stop and get gas now. He was like, I don't got no money.
Yeah, all the way already in full transit.
I know. I'm like, Ronald, I can't even make it back to your house now.
You're going to have to push the car to the place we getting to.
So we run out of gas, about 2 blocks away from the gig.
Oh, my God.
Sneak in to Dennis Chambers' concert, first off.
Oh, my God.
And then afterwards, I was like, Ron, you got to ask Dennis for some gas money.
Oh, my God.
He didn't want to do it. He was hemming and hawing. He didn't want to do it. And me and he was like, go ask him, Ronald.
Yeah, you done brought us all out here. We just about to sit here. We gonna be stuck in Hollywood. Just
then what happened? So he went and asked Dennis for some money. Dennis gave him $20, and we had no gas can, so he had to push the Mustang looking for a gas. There wasn't no Google. Yeah. You had to push your car looking for a gas station.
You don't want to call your parents. You didn't want nothing because you had to do it yourself because it was like. If I call somebody, it's going to set the tone for how they deal with me for the rest of the next couple of weeks. Like, Dad, come help. I'm like, all right. But you're not going out next week, though. Like, you're not going to be so quick to leave next week. But yeah, it's kind of different things like that throughout history,
It's like there's a kindred spirit to that. We're going to get the music however we're going to get it. Like today we both were talking about how we just got in and have not had a chance to even... breathe. It was like you land, like you literally throw you out the plane onto the stage. Like, so check it out. We're gonna open the door. We're gonna drop you off right there.
Into the stage.
I know. Aim for the green. I'm like, aim for the green? Yeah. Don't aim for the black. That's fire. Aim for the green. I'm like, whoa. Can you land the plane?
The band gonna be playing as you landing. Yeah. Oh my God. Like, yeah, it's pretty intense, but it's for the most part, it's always been like that. We always put ourselves in positions to like always be, in the mindset to play and try to keep playing and playing as much as possible, And I feel like because we had that as a constitution as kids, we kind of, for me personally, it was like Kamasi was like a genuine like push into that because didn't have a lot of friends. We have a lot of like even our friends now, like. A lot of our friends don't really play like they used to just because it became like a passing tone or it was something that was a stepping stool to something else. But for us, it was always about the playing. It was always like, hey, are we going to play over here? You can play over here too. It's like, and we would go like, to be honest with you, if you had us in your band at any point, you struggled very immensely. Like, I'm just not thinking about that.
Yeah, your band always became our band.
It was intense. You'd be fighting with Ronald. You'd be mad because I had ADD. I would be like a fly. You'd be like, Steven, play back what I said. Like, huh? It's like, were you listening? But, I would play it back. But, you got Kamasi over here. Is just, don't give him a solo. It would be like
45 minutes later.
Yeah, everybody be on the side of the stage, like sitting down, like, he going. It's like he's really going. And it'd be like, yeah, man. And we would just be going with it. We'd be like, let's go, Yeah. And but it kind of stuck with us, It really did, The ethic, But I definitely feel like that wouldn't have existed if there wasn't a Kamasi there, Like seriously, for me, it was always like a thing. If I kind of looked up to him a lot, But I was always like, even for me, singing right now is like a weird thing. I always say it, but it's like. I was a really quiet kid. Like, it's like this, I used to get bullied because I looked like a girl. Like, I'm the guy at lunchtime that would sit around and draw,
Yeah, Steven, the whole, like, everybody likes to contrast weird now. Steven was doing that way before that people were doing that. It's like we all were like, Steven must have like prayed to God, change the earth, change the whole world so that what I like, everybody else likes it too. I'm like, how did this happen? How did all of a sudden like dressing way out crazy? How did Steven? How did you do this? How did you make the world? How did you adjust the world to you?
You couldn't get me in a suit.
Oh, I mean, one time we had a gig. We was wear all black. So I go to Steven's house to pick him up. I'm like, yeah, Steven, so you know we gotta wear all black. He was like, all black. I don't know, man. So he comes out with a black shirt. I'm like, okay, we just got some black pants and we cool. And we go in his closet. I'm like, pink pants, purple, orange,
Ain't no black.
mandarin.
Man. Jinko jeans. I'll be having like Jinko jeans. And, like,
I know. I was like, polka dots. I was like, you got every color except some black pants, huh?
I used to have to borrow my dad's clothes because I don't know. I just never. It was like telling me to do something specific was like telling me not to do it. So it was like I would nod and say yeah, but then it would just like come out like wrong and backwards. You know, just.
And that's kind of stuff too. It was like we were all such individuals that we were constantly influencing each other. Like Steven saying, like like we had this band called the Young Jazz Giants. That was me kind of pulling us together. And then like when Steven put his record out, when he put out the Golden Age Apocalypse, that really lit a fire on all the rest of us. Like, man, we had always talked about us like really putting our music out there, and he did it. And it was like, and we were like tripping because it was like all of a sudden like the whole world like knew about our friend that like we always knew Steven was the dopest, but it was like all of a sudden everybody else knew. We were like, have you heard of this guy named Thundercat? I was like, Steven? Yeah, I told you about Steven 2 years ago. And it was like that was like a thing that we all were like, man, yeah, we got something. It's like because we were all such individuals and we maintained that, like even through getting fired from off gigs.
Oh man, the fired stories. That should be a T-shirt.
Out.
That should be part of your like merch. Fired with an exclamation.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Fired. Like
if you're gonna be individual, you will be cussed out.
Yeah. Oh,
in public, on a stage,
on so many levels. On so many levels, man.
We all have our little stuff. You can come back to the house and say, "What happened, man? Man, I'm going to trip because I took a 25-minute solo."
Yeah, man. Some real shit, man. They're not expecting you to like a lot of the time, especially when you playing, there's cats that always like, there's nobody has a gauge of like what is like intense or like, really like, watered. It's like, it's almost like there's a very gray area a lot of the time, unless you play or your ears are that in tune. So it's like, we grew up kind of hard line. Like I was saying, playing, don't leave the stage idle for about more than 5. Don't sneeze with Ronald playing. Don't sneeze with Ronald in the band. A sneeze was just loud enough for him to get like several 30-second notes in, and for you to just get confused and be like, was my sneeze that loud or was it was like it was intense? Like saying was Snoop, yeah.
And then Ronald and Steven got a funny little sense of humor. Like they like throwing people off. So now you playing and they're trying to throw you off. They trying to confuse you. And I know it. And I'm like, look at these.
By playing like a slight hair.
Changing one note of the chord and Ronald gonna sip the beat just ever so slightly, and now they're lost and they're over there giggling and laughing to each other. And I'm like, we gonna get fired, right? They're gonna fire me too.
It's coming for all of us.
Yeah, we all gonna get fired. Yeah. I need this gig.
Yeah, like you and your homeboys. So you're like, wait a minute, like.
We try to distance ourselves. We try to come over to the leader like, yeah, it was crazy what they were doing, right? Don't make no sense whatsoever. Just ignorant. Just ignorant. I just don't even understand it. I saw you laughing too, Kamasi. You fired too. Like, oh.
You try to slide over to the...
Try to slide to the...
Can you believe this fool? Ronald, what are you... Nah, man, but yeah, that's this is like our childhood for real. It's like that's how we grew up, man.
Yeah.
And then and of course the video games and struggles with relationships, real life, But it's the fun part. It honestly is the fun part. And I think that was one thing we would fight for the shit to not get ruined. And it's like you have like so many people's experience with the music that would be so twisted or like, contorted, and they wanted you to learn their book of how it's supposed to go. And we didn't really have any reference as to which way made sense other than what we knew, and it was passed down to us, like you're saying, like from our parents that used to play together, and I feel like it is something specific to LA, to a certain degree, because it is knowledge that gets passed down. And emotion and the way to feel and think sometimes, and we grew up very fortunate to have each other and parents that cared about the music like that, to where they embedded it in us. It was almost like they like broke us before we even knew we were broke.
Yeah.
So it's like you start out just on 1,000.
Yeah,
like, okay, one and then a two and a it's just like immediate.
Yeah, the music was it's so hard that it was like it was like 12 of us in the band. And sometimes it'd be 3-4 people in the audience. And we'd be playing so hard and long. Like we play a 4-hour set, like it was 10,000 people there. Yeah. Like there's a recording we have, and the recording you swear like they must have been at Madison Square Garden.
Right, just two splattered claps here, clap, clap, clap. Band clapping to sound like just a million people. We had the band would be so big, it'd be like out the side of the building. It'd be like one of the keyboard players' keyboard would be hanging halfway out the side exit. It was intense, man.
But we were coming off a tour. We was playing for 60,000 people at the same time. So it was like...
There's a real imbalance, almost like a weird psychological imbalance to where you're supposed to go, I'm supposed to figure it out between there.
Yeah, so it was an interesting thing is that like, of this group of musicians that's from LA now, there's a lot of individualism. I think that it came from that. It was like, we were like, it's such a bipolar world. We would own the biggest gigs, being fired from the smallest gigs, right. Playing our own gigs, and like
you develop just like an algorithm almost. You start to see, you get to see between things a bit. You go, oh, okay.
Yeah, and so then you look up, and then all of a sudden, like you have a sound, and it's like that thing that like people used to fire you over. Now they're fighting to hire you to get that same thing.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing. Like I'm telling you, like when Stevie's record came out, and it was like these things that he's been doing his whole life. Like I just musically like recognized, but obviously he grew, and it was like the musicality was different. It was stronger, but it was like man, I remember like people used to yell at Steven.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because of like his bass tone. And now it's like everyone wants to try to get that. No one can get it. And it's like he used to I literally see people like, no, turn the bass up over here. Turn this down, and it's like, and now that same tone, because he just stuck with it. He was like, man, that's me. And it was like, it's like a trip how that, like, I remember like him fighting to keep himself, man. And then it's like, you look up and all of a sudden, like I fought my way through all these years of people trying to conform me and turn me into a musician that was more normal, basically. Like, maybe we couldn't conform. I don't know if we were really not trying to or not, or if we just couldn't do it. You know what I mean?
You a kid. Certain stuff you're not really processing, regardless of what somebody throw at you. You be like, all right, I got it. And it's like, it doesn't even hit you before it stops. It's like, sure. Yes. You get it? Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like like people, like, hey, Kamasi, can you take your solos a little bit shorter? Oh yeah, no problem. So instead of 15 minutes, I'm gonna play 14. That was cool. Right. That was cool with you? No. Okay, I'll do a little. I'll bring it. I'll bring it in 13 and a half. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, man, full on, man. But that we needed that. We needed that for sure. And. That's where we are, now. It's like kind of like the culmination of that, But our lives have intertwined in different ways in different places where it's like there's a common thread through a lot of it, but it's like even with the experiences, they were like very different. Working with guys like, from Kendrick from Flying Lotus to Kendrick, that's the part that everybody sees. Like nobody sees the other, the parts that lead up to that and stuff like that. For me, at one point, I didn't know necessarily what I was beating at, but you know what it came from? It came from me producing music and like writing tracks from my bass and realizing that I had to play the other roles because it was almost like overcompensating for the fact that I didn't play everything. So I would try to like play the different roles with the bass. So I would be jumping between different things and like trying to figure out, well, this would probably sound like this if this was, and I'm going to try to get close to that, and I would try to make music and complete tracks based on that. And that's what around that time where the thing where the tone thing became a serious issue, because I just kind of found where it was like I felt I could hear myself and I could still, people hated it. Yeah, people hated it a lot. And I was very like, I don't even want to say, I guess one track mind is but it was kind of like, I don't know. I just, I didn't mean to like offend anybody. I would just be like.
But the homies liked it. You know what I mean? Like we liked it. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it was like, I think part of that thing was like, people don't realize like we play on a lot of records together. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Kendrick was just very gracious in that he
his mind was big enough.
Yeah, to kind of so I came in like not really, because they had already been working on the record for 2 years before I got there. So I came in not really knowing what they had been doing. I just knew they'd been doing.
He felt it. He could feel like it's almost like the energy was too close to where it was like again, like this life that we've lived together. It's like, there's no way it's not gonna translate. No way. By the time that I had gotten to working with Kendrick, I mean, there's kind of a bit of grooming that happened, in a different way, like, where, like, a good example would be, I rarely talk about it, every once in a while, but I do. But like, I was a very, very, very heavily involved in this group called Sa Ra Creative Partners. And a lot of people, knew about them and, still know about them. And, but didn't, my involvement would be like, you would just literally call me the bass player. Like, the bass player, but it's like I was also creating tracks and doing stuff with them, singing backgrounds and doing things. And, for me, it was like I started realizing it was more like it was a songwriting thing, but there was no place for it. It would just be like, either you make a bunch of tracks for people or you just shut up and play bass. And he's like, you better have the right tone. And he'd be like, But I would always be creating music. And there was a moment for me, like, I shared this with my brother a little earlier, where I knew things were changing when right before J Dilla died, like I remember having a conversation with him when he was on his way to Brazil. And the conversation was, he's like, when I get back to LA, me and you are going to sit down and work. And I don't, I don't always talk about those moments like that. It's like, I remember that moment and I didn't know what to say or do. It wasn't like he kind of saw through it. And it was like, he's like, okay, you play bass, but I know what you do. It never happened because, of course he passed away. But then in my mind, it set in my mind, okay, there is something different happening. And I just started walking down that. So by the time I had gotten to Flylo had known of me through Sa Ra and Jay Davey. So the moment getting to Flylo, it was like, I mean, the best way to describe it for me would be like, have you ever seen like a Nacho Libre? The moment where it's like, they do that, like they fight over the nacho chips in the alley and then they decide to team up. And this is like the handshake and then you get on the car. And that was like the moment for me with Lotus. And like, it's like at first it would always just say featuring Thundercat, like on Cosmogramma. It was like, oh, featuring Thundercat. But I was writing music with them back then. I was featured on the song because I was singing. But I was just as involved with You're Dead as I was with Cosmogramma. I've been with them through that whole process. And so that's what I'm saying. Like by the time you've seen me, it's like it was something else, But the story with Lotus even travels further back, when we were younger too, because it was like I'll let you.
Yeah. It's like the first gig we did, like, so we grew up as little kids together, and then we started a band, the Young Jazz Giants. When I think Steve was in like 7th, 8th grade, I was in like 9th or 10th grade. And the first gig we did was the John Coltrane competition. And when we won it, Robbie Coltrane brought his little cousin with him to give us the award, and it was Flying Lotus. I think y'all stayed in touch, right? Like, cause they were like,
no, he was he was another quiet one. Like I didn't,
because they were closer in age, I think. Because he was
but it's like that's what I was saying. Like the stories are so interweaved and some, it's like it's hard to pinpoint moments where, because it's like the first time I even met Flying Lotus, the first time like I consciously was like there, it was like at South by Southwest, and he may have remembered from when we were children, but I didn't. I was just kind of, it's like, oh yeah, this is Thundercat. He's like, oh yeah, I know who you are, and I was like, okay, like, yeah, I know who you are, dude. And you know, we were like, it was kind of like, yeah, man, we got to hang out at some point. But it was like a year or two in between us actually like, okay, let's hang out, you know, it kind of took off, you know, in a different manner, you know. These moments that also seem so like, you know, like, whoa, where did that come from? It's like they weren't just out of nowhere a lot of the time, you know.
Yeah, it feels really ordered. You know what I mean? Like even like Lotus, like we meet one little time happenstance as kids. But then like you look at like our interests and it's like, man, musically just us all being in anime and like comic books and it's like video games, like and music.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, wow, that's interesting. And then like same thing with like, you know, me and Steven. It's like, you know, we started playing this band called Multi School. I'm like, hey man, you like Dragon Ball Z? Yeah, I love Dragon Ball Z. Like how does that, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like, that was
Final
like,
Fantasy X came out.
You know what I mean?
We
Like,
sat on that couch and played that motherfucker from beginning to the end.
Yeah, like 3 days straight.
Full on.
We both had like sleep depravity high. Like, hey Steven, are you seeing things too?
Yeah. Just like,
yeah,
want to get something to eat? We're like,
I've been seeing things for about 8 hours now. Come on, I'm like,
we should get some air.
We should go to sleep.
Yeah, like we should.
I don't like this if I'm seeing now. I don't like this if I'm seeing right now, Steve. Let's go to sleep. Let's go to sleep.
Yeah, you know, and but it's like the interest is what it's like the glue between things. You know, it's like the ability to always come back to the reality of it, what it was for us, which it always was just like. I think
check
like, this out. You know,
like the big thing that happened recently. Like I was saying when I came into Kendrick's sessions, that was different. Like we did sessions for Snoop, we did sessions for Puffy, and like we did sessions for Quincy Jones. We played on all these different things. But it was like normally you come in and I'm like, my friends are on the record. I already know that, and they have hidden themselves into the music in a way that you would never know it was them. So that's why I was kind of low-key expecting. I'm like, oh, okay. I wonder how Steven hid himself in this joint. You know what I mean? I wonder how Terrace has somehow figured out a way to hide this massive musician who I know to have all this stuff to part of him. He's like, it's like let me hide the moon and the ocean. Real quick.
Like,
and it's like
I can see you,
and we do it. We do it as musicians. We figure out a way to like compact all this thing that we have into something that like fits neatly into this little compartment. Mm-hmm. And so I come in to hear the music, and I'm like, that's full-fledged Steven right there. He ain't hiding. That's a whole full-fledged chunk. And I was like, oh wow, so y'all not in this session hiding? You know, then I hear Terrace take a solo. I'm like, that's a full-blooded Terrace Martin solo.
Yeah.
Oh, so we don't gotta hide.
Right.
And I was like, oh wow, man, when did this happen?
Yeah.
We've been hiding on records for decades. Yeah. And all of a sudden it was like, now we get to like actually, you know, be ourselves. And I was like, oh wow, that's really, wow, okay. This is cool. And so it was like, they kept telling me too, like, Kamasi, you don't gotta, because I was so used to like, okay, I'm gonna sneak a little sharp 11 in here, right? Just for a split little second. Nobody gonna know it's there but me. And they're like, Kamasi, you don't gotta do all that, man. Just go ahead and
just
put it in there. I'm like,
man.
Like, shh. Kendrick gonna hear you.
Right.
Don't listen to them, Kendrick. I ain't gonna put no strange notes in your songs.
Right.
But he was like totally with it. And it was like that moment of understanding, like, oh, okay, wow, like and it goes back to me saying like people like when Steven put his record out, people wigging out over these things that he does. I'm like, that's funny because he's been doing this for a long time. But just, he was never allowed to do it. And like, he put his own record out and it was like, oh, now when he put his own record out, what that did was like, no one is like inhibiting you. No one's telling you that you, like he said, like, you know, now I can play all the parts myself like I want to. Like before, it's like, hey man, get out the guitar player's parts.
Yeah.
get out of his lane.
I don't even want to say any names, man. People used to say like, wild stuff to me.
But on his record,
bass players don't play a 6-string, and they'd be like, "Sure, we don't." I'm like, all right, let me get my 4-string just so it makes you feel better. Here you go. It's a 4-string, and look, it doesn't have any tone. That just like you like it, just dirt, nothing. You want me to just go ahead and run in traffic after I finish playing? You know, it's like that's how it would feel, man. It'd be like sure.
But that was a revelation for all of us. It's like, oh, but if you put out your own record and you show people, like, this is what I'm actually trying to do, and that's what it was. It's like, that's what that actually is. You know what I mean? That's what you were trying to give that to me all these years. Like, yep. And you kept saying no. I was like, I didn't know. I didn't know that's what you were trying to give me.
Oh, man.
And so it was like,
in space, man. We would be in space. It's the best feeling ever. I like the memories that I can.
Oh, man, like Raphael Sadiq. we used to play. We were all over the place on that, and like, to their credit, like these artists definitely knew our talent because they gave us a chance and they put us on the gigs and they took us on tour with them, and we grew from it too. We learned from them, and like each time, for me at least, every time I got on the gig and I had to kind of like figure out a way to. I mean, I would say I was masking myself, but like I had to learn your music so I could figure out how I could put this thing that I like to do in it. So I had to like really, really learn it and go like, okay, this is what you're doing. How can I put this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Constantly.
It was like diabolical. We were like, how could we?
And you can't. We would know, but it'd be like almost like mental between us. It'd be like, how are we gonna fuck this whole shit up? Ronald, the best thing ever was having a brother like my older brother, Ronald Bruner Jr. Like, cause he was like, he's a bit of a spark in the real way. Like, everybody used to pick on Ronald because he was just so like out, like, he had all kind of nicknames. Called him Crash and Burn because you blink, like I said, you would blink and it would turn into Mahavishnu Orchestra on like a Snoop gig. Like, no matter what it was, it would just be like you'd be doing your song in 7 by the end of the song. You're like, how did I get to this? Again, it's like these moments that like it was like we would kind of lean on each other in very interesting ways. Almost like having somebody there behind you to always keep you like moving forward and up, as compared to like sliding down a mud, and you're just like, what the hell is going on? It's funny. It's like, it's funny. We've like even lost friends throughout the years that, like you would never, like, your dad, my dad would always tell me something like, like his generation had the people that, that he just would be like, that get strung out and do something weird, something would happen, he'd see him on the street when we were kids. I didn't understand it. He's like, man, I went to high school with that dude. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, my dad's like, could that be you? What are you trying to tell me right now? But like even with guys like Austin Peralta and like Zane Musa, these guys that we grew up with that were genuinely, if they were here now, it would be scary. They were like, to us, they were like forces to be reckoned with musically. It'd just be like, it would be intimidating to see a person that could comprehend and like process so much so quickly. But they flickered out and just disappeared on us. It's like, even with those moments, it's like it's the fact that we're still here, like hearing my friends laugh in that other room that I've known since I was a child. Nothing can make up for that. Like nothing can. And there's no amount of anything, it's like no amount of like, gigs and like, I'm working. It's like, it's not that. It's like real life, and it's like, to me, it's like, it's inspiring in itself, because it's like it is a different time. Like, Kamasi mostly tours like by himself now. Me too. I tour a lot by myself, and it's like people are finding their bearings in different ways and different manners. But it's like, again, here we are.
And it's weird. Like, it's like we always, it's like when one of us kind of makes a milestone, we all kind of jump up. It's like when his brother Ronald, when he went to go play with Kenny Garrett, it was like he came back and we were like,
yeah, it was like
that?
He had that glow. It was like you be scared as shit to play with him. He was like,
it was like, yeah, like when what
the fuck? The hell is this?
We can get the world stage at 5:00.
yeah. Let me see this.
And it was like, so we all bumped up, and it happened like different parts of our lives. I mean, it's like I remember when Steven got in this like Stanley Clarke, or at least from my perspective, I remember, and I remember him giving me that self-titled record.
Oh man!
And I was like, man, it's like it kind of just changed my whole like, okay, fusion exists. Wow.
Man.
Yep. Let me change my whole thing real quick. You know, like my friend Terrace, when Terrace started making beats and like producing.
Oh man.
Like, you know, like none of us had ever really even really thought about doing that. We would write songs, play gigs. It was like, oh, like buy some electronics and like actually record our own music.
Yeah. And
Oh.
you sell it as a.
Okay, and then so everyone kind of had a bump up, you know.
Yeah, man.
When Steven started playing with Suicidal Tendencies, it's like, oh wow, you can like combine like rock and roll like that. Like you can put that in there like that.
That said a lot to me. That's one reason why I think I stuck around too, because it said a lot about Mike Muir. Everybody was, you know, like looking for this hardcore, like, you know, punk that just didn't listen to anything else. That man knew what he was doing. Not saying because like, yeah, you know, you have me in the band. No, it was like he would encourage me to be like, man, you better play more. And I'd be like, that sounds like something Kamasi would tell me. Like keep playing. And I'd be like, for real? And he'd be like, he'd drop the mic and walk off stage for a minute, and I'd be like, bass solo, and start running. You know, it's like, you know, and it's, you know, that's kind of why I think that's one thing that kind of kept me with him for a while, because of his open mind to like allow that in, you know, like to play, you know. Yeah,
it's like a pendulum. It's like each person like this person like steps up, and then we all kind of go up, and then this person goes up there, and which that person goes like that, and it's like, and I think the growth. I mean, that's a lot of people like look at it as an anomaly, like how all of these, just like when you hear the other records, like when you hear his brother's records, and when you hear like Brandon Coleman and like Ryan Porter's working on some music that's just crazy. Like when you hear all this music, people are gonna be like, how did all that music come out of one group of kids that all knew each other, and you know, how did that happen like that? I think it's that. It was like a pendulum thing. It's like that we all just kept following each other.
Yeah, it's like I was saying, we are like, we would be our own, you know, because a lot of the older cats, they're gone, you know, and the ones that would, you know, they're around, you have a conversation with some of them, and they're ready to stab you before you ask them a question too deep. Like, well, how am I supposed to get to this? It's like something you're not supposed to know. So you try to take you out before you get there, you know. But like we, you know, us being very much like in this, you know, trajectory, you know, it's like it's things we needed to see between each other. You know, you need to see it in front of you or hear it, you know. To tag on to what he was saying about it being like a pendulum where you just kind of feed off of each other, you know. I think it's awesome.
Man.
These motherfuckers in the background talking about beef jerky.
I know. Drinking up all the liquor.
All the damn Grey Goose. Conversation gets slightly volatile. Uh-oh. Somebody talking about somebody's mama. Here come the pain.
Did that sound like Tony took his knife out? We all know the sound of shing. Like, is that Tony's knife?
Right. We got to cut the interview.
I'll be right back. Hey, Demon, tell them the story about the time we got trapped in the Bahamas. I'll be right back.
Oh my gosh. Real life, man.
Nobody move, there's blood on the floor, and I can't find my heart.
I'm Elia Einhorn, and you've been listening to Kamasi Washington and Thundercat on the Talkhouse Music Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to catch other Talkhouse Music Podcast episodes recorded at Pitchfork Music Festival, including Julia Holter and Broken Social Scene's Kevin Drew, Porch's Aaron Main and Shamir, BJ the Chicago Kid and Mick Jenkins, and Spencer Tweedy and the band Whitney. A big thank you to Pitchfork for hosting the Talkhouse at the Fest. This episode is recorded, edited, and co-produced by Mark Yoshizumi. For another great insight into Thundercat's work, check out the fantastic Song Exploder podcast episode on his song Them Changes. Subscribe to the Talkhouse Music Podcast on Stitcher or iTunes.